talk about Flash. He saved every one of us. Now I'm actually going to be talking about the episode 1 of the new CW series, The Flash, obviously based on a DC character. Now before I get into the review, a couple of things I better point out. This episode was actually leaked on YouTube a couple of days ago. And it's not actually supposed to come out until a couple of months, I believe, but it was on YouTube for a very short time. So I managed to catch it. So I'll give my thoughts about what I obviously thought about this particular pilot episode. But with that in mind, I do appreciate maybe not a lot of people have seen it. So my review will be spoilers free. So I'm not going to go into a hell of a lot of detail about the actual plot. But I'll kind of give you a brief overview and my kind of thoughts on what I thought of the actual show itself. But to give you a very kind of brief sort of plot line here, spoiler free, it basically tells the tale of Barry Allen, who is a CSI, and we kind of see a prologue where Barry is a young boy and he kind of witnesses a kind of traumatic event, and this has kind of spurned him to kind of seek out strange events, kind of like an X-Files setup really. And you know, this has kind of led him to become a CSI, and we actually have first seen Barry Allen in the Arrow TV show, of what this show is really a spin-off of. So this actually exists in the same universe as the Arrow TV show, and basically through a kind of a series of accidents or a kind of a big event, basically the Barry Allen is kind of given superpowers, and this powers basically allows him to kind of really run and kind of just act very, very fast and kind of, you know, the fastest man on Earth. There are a couple of kind of secondary, I guess you'd call them, powers as well, which I kind of won't really go into. And it's really the kind of pilot episode is him sort of coming to terms with this kind of newfound power. What's he going to do with it? He kind of, through a series of circumstances, manages to sort of gain I guess you'd call it a small sort of team of people who really sort of know his sort of secret and are able to kind of help him. And in this particular episode, it sees him go against another kind of metahuman who has the ability to transform weather, a bit like Storm from the X-Men, I guess. But this guy's a bad guy, and it's really kind of this kind of first sort of obstacle, this first kind of metahuman as we're going to kind of come to know him, and him, you know, the story of this kind of first clash and setting up the show as kind of where Barry is going to be the kind of protector of this particular sort of city. So, you know, I've mentioned Arrow. The Stephen Amell, who plays Green Arrow, does have a small cameo in this episode, which is nice. And it's nice to have that sort of continuity and a kind of a shared universe. If this will be shared with other kind of DC properties, I don't know, but you know, I quite like the fact that we at least have, you know, two kind of separate characters. The show, the kind of feel of the show is a little bit different to Arrow, though it kind of reminds me more of Smallville, I have to say. It's a lot more kind of soapy than I think than Arrow, and that's why it kind of reminds me a bit more of Smallville. And that's partially to do with these kind of supporting characters, as I'll touch on. But the main selling point of this film is the guy who plays Barry Allen, Grant Gustin. Now, he's previously worked on Glee, and I actually caught a couple of episodes of Glee with this guy, and he's a very, very different character. It's that they've obviously got a guy who can kind of go into different roles and really sort of sell it. So I think he's a very good choice, and he really makes a likeable Barry Allen. It's a really guy who you can root for. You know, he seems quite sort of approachable, if that makes sense. Kind of not maybe someone you'd kind of put on a pedestal as being particularly sort of, you know, your sort of typical sort of superhero, clean cut, you know, massive muscles and all of that. So this, you know, he's kind of a relatively sort of scrawny guy. Now there was some criticism about the kind of look. Oh, he's too skinny, he's too young looking. But I think they cast the right guy here. He makes a great, interesting kind of leading man who you want to root for and you want to see succeed. So, and he does a good performance and really sort of sells his character, I think. So that's the first good thing I have to say about this. Obviously, the second thing I would say, it's a lot more, I guess you'd call it sort of sci-fi. There's a lot more of these type of elements compared to what we've seen in for example, in Arrow. Not just the fact that we've had people with superhero sort of powers and things like that. There are other kind of, I guess you would call them, sci-fi elements as well, without sort of going into any kind of spoilers here. So the effects for a TV budget, I think, are pretty good. Obviously, I'm not quite sure if this is the finished effect. As I say, this was actually a kind of a promotional screening, so I don't know if the effects are finished. They kind of look finished to me, but you know, they're okay. There are a couple of times where it does look a little bit kind of green screen here and there, but like I said, this is an effects-heavy TV budget, so I'm not expecting kind of, you know, movie level effects. But they did a decent enough job. The effects of kind of the storm and stuff I thought were all pretty good though. So maybe when just Barry's running a few times, it kind of maybe it's just people need to sort of the close-up shot of his face and things like that. They kind of look a little bit green screen, but to be fair, that's, you know, I can live with that. Couple of things I didn't like. Okay, so the first thing, the supporting characters. One in particular, Iris, who was essentially the kind of the best friend, this female best friend. So Barry looks like he's going to have a bit of a kind of a crush on. I have to say, I thought she was kind of an unlikable character. She's not meant to be. She's very kind of just a stereotypical kind of like, you know, female best friend, if that makes sense. And that she has some horrible dialogue, so I don't necessarily blame her, but she has some absolutely horrible dialogue. And there are a couple of instances where I don't think the dialogue is fantastic. For example, there's one exchange where Barry sort of decided that he's kind of, you know, he wants to sort of be her to be maybe a girlfriend, and you know, she's like, oh, I totally know what you're going to say, and she thinks he's going to say something else, and he's like, nah, that's cliche. Come on, that's just really trite. So I didn't like some of the dialogue, and her character. We're obviously meant to kind of like, you know, think she's a nice person, but I didn't really like the character, to be quite honest. I mean, it's one episode, so as I say, that may well change. But based on this one episode, I don't really like her. The other issue I have to say is the policing really inept and really unprofessional, and that kind of did bug me. It just we see the police quite often. As I mentioned, Barry's a CSI, so the police are in this quite a lot. But they just seem so disorganised, unprofessional, don't act like you would expect police to act. So I really didn't like the police in this episode. There are some supporting characters who are police. Going on to, I guess, positives, however, there are lots and lots of Easter eggs here. There's loads of kind of like little things that you'll spot if you're a DC Comics fan. I mean, I'm a superhero fan. I'm more a Marvel guy than a DC fan, if I'm honest. But even so, I have you know, some casual knowledge about DC properties, and I picked up on a few things. There's a particular Simeon sort of character who is kind of hinted at, and certain comic events, things like that. So I think it's nice to have all these, you know, little nods and kind of maybe little previews about things you may expect coming up. And there's probably some I missed as well. But I think it's great fan service. I think that they've obviously got the kind of the finger on the pulse of trying to sort of appease like mainstream and kind of like the sort of DC fans as well. So I kind of like that. I have to say the costume I thought was pretty good. I know there's been some criticisms that it isn't exactly kind of like the comic version, but I think it's been adapted well, and you know, I thought that all looked quite good to me. Some of the sort of, like I say, going back to the supporting characters, I don't know how I feel about them. Some of them just seem kind of very kind of cliche. It reminds me. Okay, so some of the supporting characters kind of remind me of the early days of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that kind of thing. Just the kind of, you know, where they have one type of personality trait, and that's pretty much all we're going to get. Like I say, it's only one episode, so I'm not going to do it too harshly on that. But overall, I think it was a pretty good episode. I think, you know, it was lots of action. It was exciting. The episode in itself had a good story that kind of was concise, so it didn't drag it out too long. Couple of mild niggles for me personally. Like I said, it's difficult to sort of really judge it too harshly as it's only the one episode, so we'll see how it goes on for here. But I think the main sort of feather in the cap of this show is Grant Gustin, who plays Barry Allen. So you know, great. He's a great actor. Also, his dad is actually the actor who played the Flash in the original Flash TV series, I believe. So again, nice little nod there. Overall, I enjoyed this. If you're a kind of a superhero fan, you definitely check it out. It's a lot more kind of science fiction based than, say, Arrow. So I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. If you've seen it, what did you think? Without kind of giving away any spoilers, let me know what your thoughts were. And if you haven't seen it, are you looking forward to it? Are you going to watch it?